Hello everybody, today we're going to be learning how to identify a coming-of-age novel. And to start that off, we're going to watch a video about how to identify a story as a coming-of-age. Enjoy! Today we're going to be learning about coming-of-age novels and about their importance and about the different characteristics that they have and how you can analyze a coming-of-age story. And in order to do that, you really have to understand what coming of age means, or at least what it looks like. So that is what I'm going to be showing you today. So this is our topic, coming of age, as I've mentioned. All right. So it's very important, first and foremost, to establish the different types of topics that you will find in a coming of age story. So this is basically, what are you looking for when reading this sort of novel or watching this sort of movie? Here are the topics. There's going to be growing up. There's going to be some acceptance. Characters are going to be facing challenges, and growth is going to happen within the novel. So these are very key topics that you have to look for. So yeah, you really have to focus on these different topics when reading a coming-of-age novel. So some characteristics of a coming-of-age novel are as follows. So usually it will follow a male or female protagonist who is maturing, or they're growing up in some way. It focuses on different challenges that they are faced with and learn to grow from. So a huge part about coming of age is seeing the protagonist go through things that are somewhat life-changing. They are fuel for growth, and they're fuel for maturing. Yeah, the protagonist is faced with challenges, and they learn how to use those challenges to grow as a person. And it also shows a shift from innocence to maturity, as I've mentioned before. Basically, it goes through how they're able to take what they have gone through and use it as fuel to become a better person and to become a more mature person. So here are some works to be looked at. These are just examples of different coming-of-age novels that deal with the same topics that we've mentioned: maturing, growing up, facing challenges, using those challenges to grow up. And so some examples of this are Tree Grows in Brooklyn, A Separate Peace, Peter Pan, and Lady Bird. So you've probably heard of some of these. I'm sure you've heard of Peter Pan and Lady Bird. Lady Bird is a very famous film. And they all deal with protagonists who learn how to take what they are going through, learn how to face the challenges that come with growing up, and use them to grow into who they're supposed to be. So yeah, I think that coming-of-age stories are very important because they deal with a lot of things that people will deal with in real life, you know. So it can give you an insight into how you can use your challenges and use the difficulties that you are met with in life to become a better person, not allowing them to cripple you, but using them as a tool to stand yourself up and mature into who you are meant to be. So I'm very excited for this. It's going to be fantastic. To better understand how to analyze a coming-of-age story, I shall now give an example using Peter Pan as my novel. Okay, hello everyone. So previously in this video, we established what a coming-of-age novel really looks like and what you have to look for in when analyzing one. So I'm going to give you an example of how to use that information to go in and analyze a story on your own that is classified as a coming-of-age. So the coming-of-age novel that we're going to be looking at is Peter Pan. I'm sure you've already heard of this. I'm going to assume that you know the plot and the background of it. And we're going to jump in and start analyzing it. So, first of all, when thinking about a coming of age, you have to ask the question, what makes this book a coming of age? So we're going to do that with Peter Pan. What makes it a coming of age? Well, we know that in Peter Pan, most of it has to do with growing up and maturing, and staying a child or choosing to become an adult, basically. So we know that it deals with two characters in particular, Wendy and Peter Pan, who are struggling with changes they must learn to deal with, specifically with growing up. It gives an idea of what it means to be an adult and its common misconceptions, which is what we'll look into in the next slide. And it also suggests the idea that each and every one of us has the choice to grow up, okay? So just keep those in mind as we go on. Remember that these are things that we're going to have to look at and understand, and let us proceed. So first of all, before we can continue, we have to establish what the meaning of adulthood is. So in the book, this is obviously brought up by almost every single character. Every character has a conception of what they believe adulthood looks like. And there's honestly a very common misconception between a lot of the characters. So this common misconception within the story about adulthood suggests that growing up means completely abandoning your childlike qualities. So this is a huge misconception that a lot of characters in the book believe. And we're going to delve into the different characters that believe this and the decisions that they make because of this misconception. So one character we'll look at is Mr. Darling. Mr. Darling, he works at a bank. He's not extremely happy with his job. He's trying to get promoted. He just wants to be seen as proper in good society. And he thinks that the way to be seen as a disciplined adult who can be taken seriously is to get rid of all childlike qualities. And that means creativity, imagination, sense of adventure. And he becomes extremely strict with the children, not allowing them to make noise so that the neighbors don't think poorly of him. And all he seems to care about is the neighbors and the expenses, as he says. And so Mr. Darling has given into this misconception of adulthood that basically believes that the only way that you will be respected as an adult is if you are the opposite of a child and do not resemble in any way the qualities of a child. Now, Mrs. Darling is actually almost the opposite of this. She shows how adulthood should actually be embraced. So through these two characters, we are given a misconception of adulthood, and then Mrs. Darling shows what your true conception should be. So she talks dreamily with her children. She encourages their imagination. She still embraces her childlike qualities while remaining well-respected in society. So she represents how becoming an adult doesn't mean completely dropping a childlike spirit, because she is able to live like a child, seeking adventure, using her imagination and her creativity while still being respected by others. So she is the true image of what an adult should be. So now it's important that we go into what how adulthood is seen by Peter Pan and Wendy, who are the two protagonists in our book. So Peter Pan despises the idea of being an adult because he is also given into its misconceptions. He believes that he will have to give up everything that it means to be a child in order to grow up, which is not true, as we've already established. So he understands that childhood is something beautiful, and it's basically an adventure in itself, and wants to hold on to it forever because it comes with qualities that are truly beautiful and enriching to the soul. And so he doesn't want to let go of that at all, whatsoever. And so he believes that because he can't let go of it, he has to submit to being a disciplined, stoic adult who has no sense of imagination or adventure or creativity. So this is dangerous because part of growing up is learning how to love, how to feel, how to exist as an emotional person. And because Peter Pan refuses to grow in every sense of the word, he will never be able to love or to be loved, because love sprouts from the growth one experiences when they overcome challenges in their lives. And so we'll get more into that later. I'll explain to you how we know that he doesn't know how to love, and how we know that growing up, choosing not to grow up, means that you also choose not to love. So now let's look at Wendy. So Wendy questions adulthood. She doesn't despise it completely. She is very curious about it and has a lot of questions. So she's extremely creative. Her imagination is incredible. She's constantly telling stories and constantly going on adventures. And she is told that she will have to completely stop all of that in order to begin becoming a lady. And she's confused because she doesn't think that that's true. She thinks that she can still hold on to her stories and her imagination and her sense of adventure and still grow up and can still be respected by other people. And so she's confused when her aunt says she can only become a young lady when she stops all of these childlike things. And so she doesn't want to let go of her childhood, but she still knows that she should become an adult. So she's a little bit confused throughout the book. Okay, so now we're going to get into why Peter Pan can't love. So for some reason, Peter seems absolutely drawn to Wendy. He gives her unconditional attention and what seems to be love. However, he does not see it as such. When Wendy asks him about how he feels about love, he refuses to acknowledge it, saying that he has never felt it and establishes that he does not believe it exists. He cannot grow, so he does not learn how to love. You have to remember that Peter Pan is a boy. He is a boy through and through. And children often, they don't know how to handle difficult situations. So they simply don't. They simply never try to. They just stuff it down, sweep it under the rug, and refuse to deal with it. And so this is interesting because part of growing up is learning how to love and learning how to, instead of just disregarding those emotions that you're feeling, to search them and to understand what they're telling you. Like he gets angry at Wendy when she says that she wants to go home, but he is never able to search his emotions and realize that the reason why he is angry is because he wants her to stay with him, because he does love her. So it's very difficult for children to be able to search their emotions and learn how to understand them on a deeper level. And that is why part of growing up is learning how to do that. And because Peter Pan will never grow up, he will never learn how to understand the emotions that he's feeling and to understand that he's actually feeling love for Wendy and that he needs Wendy in his life. So that's one of the things that you will lose if you choose not to become an adult, if you choose not to let yourself grow. So it's interesting. So next we have to look at Captain Hook. He is another character that believes in the misconception of adulthood. So he represents an adult who despises the decision he made to grow up. Captain Hook is upset because he made the decision to become an adult and he hates his decision. He is envious of Peter Pan, wanting so badly to have what he has, which is basically eternal youth, to the point that he makes it his mission to kill Peter. He is so upset with himself and so angry at everything that he has lost in his childhood and in the beauty of being young, that he wants to take it out on Peter Pan, because Peter Pan exemplifies eternal youth. And so Hook represents men who are so discontented with the fact that they have made the decision to grow up. They live their lives wallowing in their childhood memories, refusing to let go of their past. Captain Hook is never able to move on from Peter Pan because he has never been able to accept the change that comes with growing up. He is so angry with the fact that he has decided to become an adult that he makes it his mission to destroy anything that reminds him of what it's like to be young, and that is Peter Pan. And so Captain Hook has also given into the misconception that adulthood means letting go completely of your childhood. He thinks that because he's old, he can't have the adventures that Peter Pan has, and he can't find the love that Peter Pan has. And he sees no beauty in his life because he thinks that he's not supposed to. He thinks that being an adult means giving up anything beautiful and good and true and just existing as some cookie cutter person that fits a description. And that's wrong. That's a total misconception, as we've already established. So it's interesting. He's kind of the opposite of Mr. Darling, whereas Mr. Darling, they both believe in the same concept. So does Peter Pan. They all believe this misconception about adulthood, the same misconception about adulthood. And so they each make decisions based off of that conception. Peter Pan refuses to become an adult. Mr. Darling tries to get rid of anything that reminds him of being like a child. And Captain Hook is so displeased with the fact that he has to give up his childhood that he tries to kill Peter Pan. So they're all giving into this misconception of adulthood. And so, in conclusion, Wendy is actually the shining example of what it means to become an adult. And we will understand that by looking into a scene. So Wendy is the perfect balance between Hook and her father. She is able to hold on to the beauty of her childhood while still allowing herself to grow up. And this is seen near the end of the movie when Peter Pan is about to be killed by Hook. She stops Hook right before he's about to kill Peter to give him a final kiss before Hook might have the chance to kill him. So she runs up and saves Peter just for 5 minutes, asking if she can give him something before he dies. And so Hook lets her do it, and she kisses him and promises that this kiss will belong to him forever. And this kiss gives Pan the strength he needs in order to defeat Hook and bring peace to Neverland. It's incredible. It's a beautiful, beautiful scene. So this kiss represents Wendy's promise to her childhood that she will forever hold it in a special place in her heart. She says to Peter, a representation of youth. So you have to remember that Peter is basically the symbol of childhood and of youth. And so she says to Peter that this kiss shall be his forever, meaning her kiss will always belong to her childhood. And so this is her pledge to never let the childlike spirit in her die. So here, even though she's about to go home and is about to accept that she is becoming an adult, she still promises to hold on to her childhood forever. And she will never let go of the beauty of what it has given her. So basically, here's an overview of everything that we've discussed. Peter Pan shows how adulthood can be mishandled and misunderstood. Hook hated the choice he made to grow up, and this hatred completely controlled his life. Mr. Darling believes that to grow up means completely abandoning your childhood and not allowing it to interfere with your life as an adult. Wendy is the shining example of how one should go about growing up. She embraces her role as a young lady, making the very difficult decision to leave Neverland and grow up while pledging herself to her childhood, promising to never let it go. This shows that growing up is scary. It is much easier to dwell in the past and stay adventurous and carefree forever. However, to grow up means to learn how to love, feel, and reach out to others. Because Peter Pan has chosen not to grow, he has chosen to never love and to never be loved. It also suggests that growing up is a choice. It seems like something we cannot control, but it is completely our decision. Each of the characters in the story have to make the choice to stay in Neverland or accept the growth that comes with going back to London. Each and every one of us will be faced with the choice to become adults. It is up to us to truly accept that role and to accept that role in the way that we were supposed to. So this really shows that, yes, growing up is terrifying. There are so many unknown things that come with it, and it's staying in our childhood is so comfortable because being a child is wonderful. It's beautiful. However, growing up is also something that can be beautiful. There's so much that comes with it. Just learning how to handle your emotions and learning what it feels like to love and to be loved. These are very strong concepts that everyone should learn how to embrace. And that's what comes with growing up. You learn how to love others and how to feel and how to experience life on a deeper level than you might have when you were a child. And so you're still taking that urge that you had as a child to just suck the marrow out of life, to do everything that you possibly can, to seek out adventure every single day, but you're able to do it on a deeper level that gives your life meaning, a sense of meaning. And so you're able to go on similar adventures you did as a child, but instead taking them and using them as a means to become a better person and to really enrich your spirit, and discover what it means to be a human and what humanity should look like. So yeah, that's an example of how to look at a coming of age and understand the challenges that the characters are facing and how they are used to help them mature. So in this case, Wendy was able to use them to become an adult who will forever hold on to her childhood, and Peter Pan wasn't. So yeah, you really have to ask yourself questions like, what challenges are they facing? How do they overcome them? How do these challenges help them in the long run? And so these are very interesting topics to be covered, and a coming of age story goes in depth with all of them. So yeah, it's very important to see this and understand what that looks like. So yeah, thank you.